What's your take on the attack of Israelis in the Al-Shifa hospital? Do we have any information that Hamas was using these hospitals to facilitate their operation against Israelis?
No, this was the Israeli equivalent of Geraldo Rivera opening Al Capone's vault. You know, they had an entire television show devoted for it, hour, 2 hours, and finally they opened it up and there's nothing there. And that's what Israel discovered at Al-Shifa. There was nothing there. And in fact, there's certain strong circumstantial evidence that Israel planted evidence trying to implicate that this was a Hamas operating center. It wasn't. And they've got several indicators. If there's one of the Israeli soldiers who's speaking in English, by the way, is giving a tour, and they've got two different pieces of film footage next to the MRI machine, where he points down. The first one he does, you can see there's like foam around an AK-47 and an AK-47 magazine. Then he comes back to put out a new film, and he points down there. Well, the foam's gone. There are now two AK-47. So they keep moving stuff around. And in the background, you can see this box. Well, the box has the same label on the bottom that these Israelis showed up out in front of the hospital with these boxes labeled medical supplies. And I've made the point in other places that the last I checked, the Israeli language is Hebrew, not English. So why do you label boxes that are from Israel in English as opposed to Hebrew? Well, because you're selling a story to an American audience that speaks English. And those boxes were used to carry incriminating material into the hospital so they could plant it, to dress it up, to look like this had been a big Hamas headquarters. They came away with nothing on that. They had a similar sort of embarrassment at the Rantisi Children's Hospital. So, Israel, they made the mistake. They built it up as this big thing. And then when they got in there, there was nothing. And, one other point. Israel built the underground bunkers back in 1983 in that hospital. This was not built by Hamas. This was built by Israel. That's why Israel could speak with such confidence that there was this facility down there, because Israel built it.
If that's the case, why they're doing this? What's the goal behind attacking these hospitals?
Well, you destroy the hospitals, you eliminate the ability of people to continue to live in that area. And so if there are no hospitals, no place for babies to be born, no places for people to be treated who are sick or injured. I think it's part of an overall Israeli strategy to vacate, to force all 2.5 million Gazans out of the Gaza Strip. It's a war crime, what they're doing.
What's your take on this attack on the Al-Shifa hospital? Have Hamas been using this hospital to facilitate their attack on Israelis?
Well, the fact that you asked that question means that it's not a known. And because it's not a known, everything that Israel's doing is a war crime. You see, yes, under international humanitarian law, there are conditions in which a civilian object, such as a hospital, can be converted into a military object. And amongst those are if a hostile force is using it as a command and control point to barracks troops, to store ammunition, things of this nature. But in the law of war, there's also there's a criteria called distinction, meaning that in order to make a distinction between civilian and military, you have to have proof. You don't get to attack a hospital, then go on a fishing expedition to look for proof. That's not how the law of war works. You have to have absolute proof, or otherwise the object must be treated as a exclusively civilian object protected under international humanitarian law. As we see right now, Israel doesn't have proof. They're desperately searching for something that can back up the extraordinary claims they made about Al-Shifa. It's big, huge command and control underneath there, bunkers everywhere, guns, the whole thing. Where is it, Israel? Where is it? The fact that you're looking for it means you didn't know for certain it was there. You're guessing, and therefore you're guilty of murder, mass murder, a war crime. Every Israeli officer, every Israeli civilian authority associated with the attack on this hospital is guilty of a war crime and should be prosecuted as such. This isn't an accident. This isn't a mistake. The law of war is clear, and Israel has violated it 100%. People need to get angry. People need to start getting angry. I'm tired of people going, well, we're just going to have a civil discussion. Imagine your child dead right now in the hospital. Imagine your mother going in for surgery and dying in the recovery room because she can't get the medical care she needs. It's time for everybody to get angry. Israel no longer gets a pass. This isn't about anti-Semitism. I'm not anti-Semitic. This is about calling out a regime, the Netanyahu regime, as a war criminal regime. And they must be recognized as such and treated as such. And I'm telling every Israeli pilot right now, we may not know your names because you're protected by the Israeli defense establishment, but we know the date you dropped your bombs. And one day justice will come to you because the records are clear. You climbed into a cockpit and you received an order and you executed that order, and you are responsible for the due diligence of the target that you're striking. You are responsible. And if you know that you're carrying out an act of violence as part of the mass, the indiscriminate bombing, the collective punishment of the Palestinian people, you have committed a war crime by definition, and you will be found out and you will be held guilty, just like every Israeli officer on the ground in Gaza right now. Hey, you battalion commanders, if you have snipers under your command and they're in schools shooting children, you're guilty. You're guilty. They're all guilty, and it's time we call them out for what they are. You know, I have been accused of condemning the Germans in World War II for what the Nazis did. And people said, well, there were good Germans. They were just German soldiers doing their job. Maybe you can make that case, but you can't collectively say that because the Germans knew what they were getting into and the soldiers knew what they were fighting for. And at some point in time, it becomes evident that you are participating in a massive crime against humanity. This is why German generals, not SS officers, German generals were hung by the neck until dead, because they turned a blind eye to these crimes they were responsible that took place under their command, even though they didn't give the orders. I hope and pray that someday there's a Nuremberg tribunal for these Israeli officers. And I want to see the look in their eyes as they're led up to the gallows, wondering in their mind what's going on as they feel the noose around their neck, knowing they only have seconds to live before the executioner pushes a button, their neck is snapped, because that's all they deserve. They don't deserve our adulation. They don't deserve our admiration. They don't deserve our sympathy. They deserve our mass condemnation for the criminals that they are. It's disgusting what's happening right now in Palestine. And this has nothing to do with Hamas. Nothing to do with Hamas. It has everything to do with Israel's national decision-making cycle, which mainstreams collective punishment, which singles out every single civilian in Gaza as an extension of Hamas, and that is a crime, a crime, a crime.
The IDF once again produced flimsy evidence to justify the reasons for shelling and bombing hospitals filled with sick and injured civilians. And this time they posted another walkthrough of another hospital, attempting to prove that it was Hamas's headquarters. And they ended up editing and then reposting the video after viewers commented that some of the evidence looked planted. So let's look at the original tweet. This is the original tweet that was posted where they said, "No cuts, no edits, just the undeniable truth. Watch as Lieutenant Jonathan Conricus exposes the countless Hamas weapons IDF troops have uncovered in the Shifa Hospital MRI building." So this video, this is another one of the videos that was put out there where the original one was of the Children's Hospital. And this one now is of the Shifa Hospital that they claim has the Hamas headquarters. Let's show actually first. Remember the 3D rendering of the Hamas headquarters that they came out with, and Netanyahu tweeted this out and said, this is legit. This is the real thing. This is the proof that this is what they've got under Shifa Hospital. Let's show that again for a refresher. So this is the hospital, and they're saying we can prove it. There's a compound under this hospital with tunnels and rooms, and this is what they're using. And this is the evidence, the undeniable evidence that Netanyahu came out with. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. So remember, this is what we're looking for when they go and they raid Shifa Hospital. When they're targeting this hospital, and they said, yeah, we know there's civilians in there trying to get, that are being treated, and NICU babies and cancer patients and whatnot. Yeah, okay, we know, but that's because Hamas has a giant headquarters underneath it. So we just have to bomb the heck out of this hospital. We have to go in, shell it, evacuate it. People will die. Well, it happens, but Hamas, Hamas shouldn't have put their headquarters there. So this is what we're looking for. So remember this. Now, the first video they showed us, they walked us through a hospital basement. They showed us what looked like a tunnel, and then but they didn't show us inside that tunnel. And so they just showed us an opening. Then they showed us a tunnel, but it was an elevator shaft, actually. Then they showed us the basement of a hospital, not an underground tunneled Hamas headquarters or anything. They just showed us a regular basement of a hospital that had been in use as buildings use basement. So here's another video. We're going to go through just a little bit of it. But let's just watch just a little, the first little bit of this video. This is what they put out as, here's the proof. This is the Hamas headquarters that we're looking for, remember. Let's play the first video, the original video. Here we go. Let me turn it up.
Shifa Hospital, as you can see from the sign. Shalom everyone, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan from the IDF here. I am in the Shifa Hospital, as you can see from the sign behind me, and as you can clearly see from the building. We are going to do a one-shot video. One shot, no editing, of all of the evidence that we have found just now in this building of the Shifa Hospital. So we're inside the MRI center of the Shifa Hospital. Israeli troops breached here a few hours ago, and we have cleared the area, make sure that it's safe. And a few of the most interesting things that we have found totally confirm, without any doubt, that Hamas systematically uses hospitals in their military operations in violation of international law. And what we have found, I think, is only the tip of the iceberg. Let me show you a few examples. Security cameras have been obstructed. All of the security cameras are covered, and this isn't the only one. You'll see the rest of them here. Follow me as we go in, and we will see.
So he says this is some of the most interesting. So remember, they're just inside the hospital. They're inside the MRI building. They're not in an underground tunnel. They're not in that bunker that they claim that they had underground. This is just inside the hospital. And he's saying this is some of the most interesting evidence. Look, they put tape over the security cameras. So that's why we know Hamas was using this. Well, for all we know, they could have gone in there and put tape over the security cameras. Or who knows why. Maybe the hospital worried that the IDF was spying on them and they didn't want them to be able to see that. I mean, who knows all the reasons why people put tape over their laptop cameras because they don't want to be spied on. So are they committing crimes because they do that? Let's keep watching here.
And see the weapons that
so this is the MRI center.
This is where patients come in
just
order
in
to
the
get
building.
MRI services. We'll proceed into a more secluded area. And the lighting here is out, so we're using flashlights. We're now, as you can see, in an MRI
they cut the power.
room. I don't know when this was used the last time. But it is definitely an MRI machine. And if you follow me behind the MRI machine, I'll show you what our troops exposed just minutes ago. In military terms, this is a grab bag. Grab and go of a Hamas combatant. And if you zoom in and we get some light over here, what you will be able to see is military equipment. There is an AK-47, there are cartridges, ammo, There are grenades in here, of course, uniform, and all of that. This was hidden very conveniently, secretly behind the MRI machine.
I want to point out that the box that is right there, users have been able to actually, there's the images of the IDF carrying what they said were medical supplies into the, we're bringing medical supplies. We got all these medical supplies. And users pointed out that the corner of that box looked just like the boxes that the IDF themselves were bringing in. So they suspect that perhaps the IDF brought in the box filled with weapons to plant stuff in this hospital. Another thing that was interesting about the boxes that were labeled medical supplies that were being brought around was that they said medical supplies in English, which this is in Arabic or Hebrew. All the people in Gaza speak Arabic. And obviously the IDF speaks Hebrew. Many of them also speak Arabic, but they wouldn't be putting big signs that say medical supplies on the boxes unless they're just doing it for U.S. viewers. They're doing that for the West. It's propaganda for the West. Like, see, we're bringing medical supplies. Look at all these medical supplies. And that's the message isn't for them. It's not for the Gazans. It's for us.
The other side, we found a backpack with what appears to be very important intelligence, including a laptop, and we'll show you that momentarily. Let's go see the next room.
Okay, another thing to point out is that this is an MRI room. MRIs are magnetic. And so storing, he said he didn't know when the last time this machine was used. It's possible it hasn't been used in a really long time. But it is just, if this hospital was in operation, because their point was, you have to remember that while the hospital was in operation, Hamas was using it simultaneously as a headquarters. And that's what they're trying to prove. They, again, have not shown us an underground tunnel network or bunker or an underground Hamas headquarters. They're just showing us the hospital. And if Hamas was using an MRI center for weapons with a big magnetic MRI machine, do we have a video of what MRIs do? I think will that make it kind of, okay, yeah, so watch this. This is what an MRI does. Is this a video? Well, look at that. It just sucks up anything that's metal into an MRI machine. You can't even get it out. So they're highly magnetic, so you wouldn't be able to store weapons, metal guns, near an MRI machine in that room. So let's go back to the IDF video. So you can't store that in there. So if this was operational, the hospital was operational while Hamas was also using it as a base, they wouldn't be able to store weapons in that particular room because it would have been operational. Now, when it's not operational and the hospital is starting to be under attack and it's starting to shut down, maybe then Hamas came in while the hospital was being under attack and started trying to fight back. Maybe the IDF planted those weapons there. That's what it kind of looks like with the video. Now let's continue playing here.
So we're still in the MRI center. The backpack was found in here, and it was also hidden behind the MRI machine. As you can see, the rest of the equipment here is proper hospital equipment, right? Bandages and medical gear. It seems as if there's no real shortage because there's a lot of equipment here, but we'll leave.
Yeah, no real shortage because they were carrying boxes called medical supplies in, where they brought in probably a bunch of medical supplies and saying, see, look at how humanitarian we are. And then they drop it up and say, look at all these medical supplies. Why didn't they use these? There was no shortage. When they claimed there was a shortage, there's no shortage. And then also there's just happened to be some weapons by a box that looks like it was one of the boxes carried
for another discussion.
Into the building.
Let's go see weapons
and that's for another
other
discussion.
prohibited items. As we walk through the main corridor here, our troops did a preliminary search of the area. We tried to uncover the cameras, but all of the cameras have been obstructed. You can see there's black tape covering it. And when our troops opened this closet here, which is in the main part of the clinic, this is what they found. These weapons have absolutely no business being inside a hospital. The only reason they're here is because Hamas put them here, because they use this place, like many other hospitals and ambulances and sensitive facilities inside the Gaza Strip, for their illicit military purposes. So there's Kalashnikov rifles here, even ammunition. And let's go see the next part of of what we have here.
Now, the original story was always that Hamas is operating underneath the hospital, inside tunnels, in bunkers underneath. They never claimed that Hamas was operating inside the hospitals in plain sight. There are enough international doctors, organizations that come through these hospitals that would have said, by the way, there's a lot of military guys and a lot of guns. I opened up a random closet and there was a bunch of guns. Or, behind the MRI machine, they've got a bunch of grenades. Somebody would have said something from the international community that travels into these areas, the Doctors Without Borders, the variety of different organizations. They would have said something if they were operating in plain sight like this. And that was never the claim. The claim was always that they're underground. But now because they don't have an underground, they couldn't find it underground, or if they did, it was caved in or obviously had not been used in 20 years or 30 years or 40 years even, because I believe that we do know for a fact that Israel built in 1983, they built an underground network of tunnels and a bunker underneath this hospital. So they're claiming, yeah, they've got an underground hospital there and they've got an underground bunker and an underground tunnels. They know that because they built them when they were occupying Gaza back in the 80s. They've admitted to building these. This has now been recently fact-checked again by Newsweek. They came out saying, let's fact-check the claim that Israel built these tunnels and a bunker underneath Shifa Hospital. And when they did their whole fact check, they came back at the end with, true, they did, they built it. So this has been something that's been known. They built them but it's unclear if they're operational, if they've been in use. Clearly not. If they had been in use and operational, they would be down there showing us the video of those command centers and the tunnels. Instead, they're walking us through the hospital and they're saying, trust us, look at this. The cameras are obscured. Look at these few guns that we found, and not very many, not enough to say, oh, this is a headquarters for Hamas for sure. Just that the guns were there. Let's keep playing the video. Let's actually just show, I'm kind of tired of showing because it's all the same. He goes into another room and he shows you a bunch more weapons laid out on the ground, just like the original, the video from the children's hospital where it was like, 4 automatic rifles and some grenades and a bomb, vest. But again, enough stuff that people just carry in. So it's not enough to say this is a headquarters. It's inside the hospital in the MRI building. But then there's this edited part. And let's get to the edited so they originally posted the tweet saying unedited, uncut, undeniable proof, right? And then viewers watching it said, that laptop that you guys showed looks like an IDF laptop. And you actually have a picture of an IDF soldier on that laptop. And you claim that these CDs, the CD that were used for the CD drive of the laptop, but that laptop model actually doesn't even have a CD drive. So you guys just clearly planted a laptop there that still has power, by the way, and there's no power in this. And they ran out of power a long time ago. And the laptop has power, which it would have run out a long time ago. So you guys are planting evidence, and it was clearly that they were planting this evidence. And so they ended up blurring out that laptop. Can we skip to that? To where they blur the laptop. So they're just showing more stuff. But let's skip ahead or just show the laptop, the blurred part. I'm going to try to move forward. Here's the part. Okay, so this is the original version, and then the edited version where he goes in, and the original version shows the laptop, and then in the unedited version they actually tried to blur the edited version. They blurred it, and they actually cut out. So this is just the blurred version, but then they actually cut parts of this video out entirely, and the new version is just is a little bit shorter than the original version. And so then when they re-uploaded it, they did not say that it was, so the edited version ends. So they blurred it out in the edited version and then cut it. And then this just continued on. And the reason is because he's pointing at the laptop, and then people are like, yeah, but that laptop is really suspect. And then he's pointing at a bunch of other stuff. And they ended up editing all of that out of the video. So, and then they uploaded it again, and they left out the unedited, uncut, undeniable, and they just posted it and said, watch, Lieutenant Jonathan Conricus exposed countless Hamas weapons IDF troops had uncovered in the Shifa Hospital's MRI building. Okay, then they later today show us a tunnel. I think we have what they then, because then people made fun of this video and said, oh, come on, guys, like that's not underneath the ground. That's just like not very many weapons. And then look at this. Then they say, look at this tunnel. And they have this video of this tunnel that they claim is the terror tunnel on the grounds of the Shifa Hospital. There it is. And then they're going to show you how far away this is from the hospital. As we keep watching this, you'll see how far. This is not underground, underneath the hospital, or even really near the hospital. This is a ways. And they're showing us this entry point. And then look, there's the hospital way over there. They're like, but it's on the grounds of the hospital. So here it is as they've dug this up. But they're not going to show us inside of this tunnel. So no tunnel. We're not seeing tunnels. We're not seeing bunkers. We're not seeing any of that. And that's the excuse they've used. They've said that this was an underground Hamas command center, and that is the excuse they used to bomb, to commit war crimes, really, to target hospitals, to target medical workers, medical facilities that they should not be targeting. It's against the Geneva Conventions, and yet they've done it, and they justified it and said, well, yeah, but we have to because Hamas is here. So, just again with this evidence, this supposed evidence that is not evidence or reasoning or justification for what they're doing there. And they have not been able to produce. I mean, this is as comical as the weapons of mass destruction. Oh, we swear they have weapons of mass. Next thing we know, they're going to tell us, we found the weapons of mass destruction, by the way. We found those Iraq Saddam Hussein weapons of mass destruction. They were underneath Al-Shifa Hospital. I mean, the justification, the lack of real evidence, and then they keep coming out with this fake, phony evidence that's not evidence and saying, see, this is undeniable. Now we're telling you why we did this. And the worst part about it is so many people are gobbling it up. A lot of people are looking at it and saying, oh, come on. I'm not going to buy this bull crap. You guys told me there would be a bunker underground with Hamas headquarters, and that's what I'm looking for. And that's not what you've shown me. You've shown me some cameras with tape on them and an MRI machine with grenades behind it, as if that was going on when it was operational, and a laptop that doesn't even belong likely to Hamas that was full powered with a picture of IDF soldiers on it. It doesn't, none of this is adding up. So we're still waiting. This is the picture that was on the laptop. And we're still waiting for real, true evidence. But I guess as long as they keep saying this is the undeniable evidence, a lot of people say, okay, yeah, I believe you. This is okay. This must be. But that's the latest in this never-ending, almost parody of what is going on with the. It would be funny if it weren't funny, but it's not funny because people are dying, because people are being killed every day, and this is the type of crap they use as justification, and it's just not good enough. It's not. It should not be to the standards of any of us who look for actual evidence of crimes being committed. I like to see actual evidence. If you're going to use the rhetoric to wage war, then you need to show me a lot more evidence than, trust me, bro, there's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We need a lot more evidence than that.
The last time we talked, Israel had just raided Al-Shifa hospital, and they claimed there was this big Hamas command and control center underneath the hospital. Now, apparently, the IDF themselves had built a basement or a bunker underneath the Al-Shifa hospital back when they controlled Gaza, back when they, controlled is not the right word, back when they occupied Gaza more directly in 1983. Now their occupation is more of like a total embargo and blockade. Back then they actually occupied it. And they built a bunker / basement underneath Al-Shifa hospital. So the speculation was, well, they are going to find like a full-on, command and control center for Hamas right underneath it. Well, it turns out that didn't exactly come to fruition. And so the language changed. The U.S. started describing it as, we found a Hamas command and control node. They changed the word from center to node, which of course depicts a much less busy, active, and full area where Hamas gathers. So they released some of these pictures. Let me show you here. This is what they say they found underneath the hospital. So you have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guns, maybe 10 guns. You got some ammunition. Is this WD-40? I don't know. I don't know what that is, to be honest. Then you have some, I guess, bulletproof vests, some boots. So this is what they released as evidence. And then you can see here they have, there's a picture. Apparently they organized everything and then took a picture. So they acted like we got them. Now, by the way, look, to me, the issue was never, is there or isn't there some Hamas people in the building? That was never the issue to me. The issue was, even if there is, Israel always decides to press the button and kill massive numbers of civilians to get relatively small numbers of Hamas members. To me, that's the issue. So if there's not, Hamas people in the building, of course they shouldn't bomb. But even if there are Hamas people in the building, they shouldn't bomb, unless you're talking about, like it's 90% Hamas people in the building. So you're going to have a collateral damage rate of 10%. Maybe I could see an argument for that. But anything 20, 30, 40, 80% civilians, and I think that's just psycho. But Israel, as you all know, always decides to bomb. They always decide to act and then turn around and blame Hamas and say, well, you're using human shields, so I just had to kill 90% civilians. I just never found that argument convincing. But come to find out, now we go to BBC did a segment on this here, and they are casting doubt on what Israel is presenting as evidence in this case. Watch.
Israel described the Al-Shifa hospital as the main headquarters for Hamas's terrorist activity. This IDF animation, posted in late October, claims to represent a Hamas tunnel system underneath the hospital. But having been inside Al-Shifa since early Wednesday, Israel's yet to produce evidence of the tunnels. It has allowed the BBC and Fox News to film at the hospital, though only locations of Israel's choice.
This is what they found.
Israel also released its own 7-minute video, which BBC Verify has analysed. A watch, visible in that video, suggests it was filmed a few hours before the BBC arrived. And this IDF video was posted, then deleted, then reposted, this time without a section referring to an Israeli soldier who'd been held hostage.
I don't know when this was used the last time.
Also in the video, we see a room with an MRI machine.
And if you zoom in and we get some light over here, what you'll be able to see is military equipment.
The BBC was shown the same room. And what we see in the two videos doesn't precisely match. For example, there's one gun in the IDF video, 2 by the time of the BBC footage. Israel has told BBC Verify this is because more weaponry and terrorist assets were discovered throughout the day.
And as always, an AK-47.
Israel also says its video is a single shot with no edits. But this appears to be an edit. We don't know the reasons for that edit, nor how significant it is. The IDF, though, says suggestions it's manipulating the media are incorrect. The IDF video also shows military equipment in other locations, though we can't verify how it came to be there. And what we see in this IDF video doesn't equate to Israel's description of Al-Shifa as an operational command center for Hamas. The US is using a different phrase, saying Al-Shifa was used as a command and control node. That implies a much smaller facility. Israel is adamant this hospital was a command center, but for now, at least, it's either not found supporting evidence or it's not sharing it. Back to you, Sophie.
Now, another point that people were making is that you apparently can't have metal in the room with an MRI machine. I mean, I'm not, any sort of medical expert, but this is a point that I saw repeated time and time again. So it's sort of sketchy up front. This is the BBC, a Western media outlet, sort of denying some of the stronger claims of the IDF. Now, I will say they did find a tunnel and they recorded a video of the tunnel. But to my surprise, the tunnel was actually like kind of small. Like we already know that Gaza has all these tunnels all over the place. That's not a surprise. The thing that's surprising to me is that they're using the existence of the tunnel or tunnels to then justify bombing hospitals and bombing all this civilian infrastructure and saying, hey, we had to do it. I find that completely and utterly unacceptable. But I'm not surprised that they're finding some tunnels. Of course they're going to find some tunnels. There's tunnels all over the place in Gaza, and it's not just to bring in weapons. In fact, there was a story that I saw the other day how early on, when the tunnels were built, they're also built because Gaza's under a complete and utter blockade. They can't even get in the amount of food that they need to survive. So they basically snuggle in food from Egypt, including, by the way, they bring in KFC, which I find kind of hilarious. But they use the tunnels also for civilian purposes, not just for military purposes, although they also use it for military purposes as well.